Hello and welcome to the Rise Up in Business podcast. I'm Tracy Myler-Crane and I'm your host. This is the legal and business podcast for small business owners, where I draw from my experience as a business lawyer and the insights I've gained from supporting hundreds of service-based businesses. When it comes to what can go wrong in business, there is nothing I haven't seen. I believe prevention is better than cure, always. And through this podcast, I'm sharing with you what you need to know to build strong legal foundations in your business and to set yourself up for long-term sustainable success. Let's dive into today's episode. If something doesn't feel quite right when you're issuing your client contracts, you're not alone. I have this conversation a lot with business owners who say to me, something feels off. I've got some doubt. It feels uncertain, or I'm not quite sure. They talk to me about this feeling and the way that things don't feel quite right when they're issuing their client contracts. That's part of the work I do. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to talk to you today about why it is that when you're issuing your client contracts, things just feel a bit off. Something doesn't feel quite right. And I'm drawing on so many conversations that I've had with business owners over the last 7 years around their contracts and the uncertainty that they have. We've just hit 7 years in business in TM Legal Atelier, and I can't tell you how much joy it brings me to be able to say that, to be here doing the work that I love 7 years in. The conversations I have with business owners are very, very similar. Business owners reach out to me and they say, I'm not quite sure if they serve my business. I cobbled something together from a few things that I'd seen in my previous workplace. A mentor gave me a copy of their agreement, or I bought a template. There's a whole host of things that they say to me when they're explaining where their contracts have come from and why things aren't feeling quite right. The most common theme amongst all of these conversations that I've had over the years boils down to clarity and confidence. There's a real lack of clarity in the documents, which means the business owners aren't confident. That's not how it's supposed to be. I want to share more with you in this episode about what it's supposed to feel like and why things are feeling a bit off. If you're a long-time listener, you will know that I have a real passion for contracts and I love what I do, and I accept wholeheartedly that very few people feel that passionate or excited about the contracts, and I don't take any offence. My backstory, though, as to why this is such a passion area for me is my earlier career in litigation. So I spent the first 12 years of my career as a litigation lawyer. So I was in court most days acting for business owners who were either suing or being sued. Most of the time it was over money, mostly. And whilst that part of my career was great and exciting and fabulous for me as a young lawyer wanting to immerse herself in courtroom drama, it really wasn't like TV, I'm sorry to say. And it really was an exciting, intense and stressful time for my career. But there was no excitement or joy or passion for the clients. Most of what I saw back then could have been avoided. And it could have been avoided if the business owners had have had the right advice or the right documentation, but the right people around them. Because we don't know what we don't know. And none of those clients set out to end up in court. That's the truth. So taking all of that experience, fast forward to now, 7 years into a business where I have flipped the script, and I now work with business owners to set themselves up for success by providing the support and advice that they need in developing contracts that work. A part of developing contracts that work is tailoring, and it's tailoring to the business. It's taking the time to understand a business and a business owner and what's important to them and what they do and how they do it. And I can say with absolute certainty that no two businesses are the same. You might think that most interior design businesses will be the same, or most business coaches will operate in the same way, or most people in my industry do it like this. But the reality is that's not the case. You might think that that's the case, but it's not, because you don't have visibility over how someone operates internally, how they onboard their clients, how they deliver, what their processes are. You don't, and you can't. So we can't assume that our business is the same as the next one or the next one or the next one. So when someone in a good-hearted moment or a gesture of goodwill says, here, use my agreement, it's fine. You can't assume that it's going to work for you the way it works for them, but you also can't assume that it's good or that it does all the things that it needs to, because unless you're a lawyer specialising in this, in which case you wouldn't be asking for their agreement or you wouldn't be accepting it if they offered, you don't know. And that's the thing. Much like my litigation clients earlier in my career, we don't know what we don't know. So when somebody offers you these things, you take it with full faith that it will do all the things it needs to. You think the businesses are the same and you think it'll be okay. But as you go along, whether you've borrowed it from someone or got it from someone or you've purchased a template or whatever it might be, as you go along, little things come up. The client pushes back on a clause, or the client suggests to you that they didn't expect to be charged for that, or they didn't realise your timeframes were set in stone, or they didn't know that that was a deadline. Lots of little things start happening and you start to think, oh, geez, I didn't know that that wasn't in my agreement or was in my agreement or something like that, and doubt creeps in. And then you might find yourself in a situation where a team member is having a bad experience with a client because the client's frustrated because their expectations haven't been managed. Or you've got a client who pushes back on invoices and says, oh, I'm not paying that. Didn't know I had to. You should have told me. All right. And then you've got clients who ghost you after you've completed the work and don't pay the final invoice. More and more of that starts happening over time, which causes you to doubt the documentation, to doubt your processes, to doubt yourself. You wouldn't be alone if you're nodding along to this right now, because this is a conversation I have so often with business owners. And they reach out and they say something like, it doesn't feel right, something's not quite right, or I think it's okay, I'm not sure though, or geez, I've just issued a proposal to a really big client and it didn't feel great attaching my service agreement. Those types of comments are comments that I hear fairly regularly given the work that I do. And the reason it doesn't feel quite right is because there's a lack of clarity in your documents, which has a flow-on effect to a lack of confidence both for you and for the client reading it. That's why things feel off. It's pretty simple. When you've got documentation that is a continuation of the touch points that that client has had with you, so whether they've seen you on social media, whether they've been to your website, they've had a discovery call, whatever it might be, they've had some touch points with you before they get to the point of receiving your agreement. When they're receiving an agreement that is a continuation of those touch points, both in terms of the language, the clarity, the branding, it feels good. It feels good for them because of that continuity, and they can have confidence in you because your documentation is a tool for building trust and credibility. They receive the documentation, the proposal, the quote, the agreement, however it is that you issue your onboarding documents. They have confidence. They can say yes to working with you with so much ease. And then you go forth, deliver beautiful services in a really aligned way. You operate the way you say you will in your documentation. You've not just met client expectations, you've exceeded them. So when you offboard, you've got a really happy client. You're likely going to have repeat work. You're going to have positive word of mouth, referrals, reviews, all the things. That's how it should be. But that starts with the documentation doing all of those things, being tailored for your business, understanding how you work, articulating your processes in a way that you operate. And so when you issue it, when you issue your documents, you feel confident, you feel really proud because you know this is how you roll. This is how I do what I say I'm going to do. And this document reflects it. Flip it. When you don't feel like that, it's because the document's not doing that. Simply put, the document doesn't do what it's supposed to do. If you're feeling not quite right, if you're feeling like something's off, that's because it is, and the documentation is not serving you. Because if done well, your client agreement or your design agreement or your service agreement, whatever you call it, the documentation you have with your client will be one of the most powerful tools you have in your business to convert prospects to clients, to set you up for success with delivery, to get you paid, to manage scope creep so there's a really clear variation process, to get your clients all the way through to completion and to be really happy, expectations exceeded, repeat work, positive word of mouth, all the things. That's how it happens. So when a client comes along and says to me, I don't feel right, something just feels a bit, it's been okay, haven't had any big issues yet, but it's not feeling quite right. There's limitations there. And we have no way of knowing the extent of the reach of those limitations. How many prospects have said no because they're not feeling right or they're not feeling confident in the agreement that you send? How many opportunities have you lost because the tool that's meant to be building trust and credibility, being your client agreement, isn't building that trust and credibility? So people have ghosted you, fallen away, said no. How do we measure it? How many times have you not followed up with somebody because you didn't feel quite right issuing the agreement and the vibe wasn't there, so you lost your mojo and you didn't go any further? How many times? All of these are really unfortunate little moments of sadness in the business journey where we've got lost opportunities as business owners that we shouldn't have. These can be avoided. They don't need to be there. They don't need to be part of the business experience for you. So let's flip it around. If I ask you, how do you feel when you send out your client agreements? If you answer anything other than really proud, confident and clear, I reckon your agreements need another look. Let's go to the next step then. Where did your agreements come from? How long have you had them? When were they updated? Were they tailored for you properly? Did you work with someone you trust to develop them? Do you know how to use them? What is your process and system around integration and implementation? How do you issue them? We need to examine those things to then understand whether or not your documents need a refresh, a redo, a rebrand, a redraft, or whether they need to be redone altogether. If we get the documentation right, tailored for you, consistent with how you operate, on brand, the right message, a fabulous continuation of the touch points for the clients that you're talking to, so that you are proud every time you send them out, so that when you're sending them out, you're not feeling a bit off, you're not feeling a bit uncertain, you're feeling proud and confident every time. That will come across to the client. That confidence and clarity makes its way to the client, so the client can gain absolute confidence from the clarity in the documents. That's how we flip the script, and that's how we make sure that when you're issuing the documents, you feel really good every time. That's how it's supposed to be. In case you didn't know, that's how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this is a legal contract, no one really feels good about them, no one really understands what's in them, it'll be right. It is not supposed to be like that. So if that's you, that's a hard no. Now you know. It's supposed to be the opposite. Fresh, empowering, clear and confident, so that you are converting more prospects to clients every time, and so that you are able to successfully deliver and exceed expectations, so that you are facilitating and nurturing those relationships to achieve growth in your business, to achieve repeat work, positive word of mouth referrals, all the things. They're all the things we want as small business owners, and you can have them. I'm hoping that by listening to me talk about this, you've got a clearer understanding or a clearer appreciation for just how powerful your client agreements can be when they're done well, and just how much of a powerful tool they should be in your business. They're an asset. Your client agreements are absolutely a business asset. So you need to treat them like one and make sure we've invested the time and the energy into getting them right, into setting them up, into making sure that we have smooth processes and systems in place every time we issue it, so nothing falls through the cracks. It becomes a rinse and repeat system, so that the positive experience that your clients have every time they receive your quote or your proposal and or your client service agreement, whatever that looks like for you, so that all of your clients have the same positive experience because you are clear and confident every time, which means by extension, the clients can be. I hope you can tell how much I'm loving recording this for you. This is a real passion area of mine, and I love sharing this message with business owners so that more business owners know the power of the documents and why they are so important. They do so much more than protect you. They absolutely do protect you if done well, yes, but they do so much more than that. And I've loved sharing more about that with you in this episode. If you have friends, colleagues, business besties that you think will also appreciate hearing just how fabulous your documents can be and just how powerful a tool they can be for you and your business, please share the episode. I would be so grateful, because together that's how we get the podcast into the ears of even more business owners. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you next time.